Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Auto Accident Attorneys Podcast. I'm your host, Attorney Ali, and I'm joined here today with my sister,
Hello.
Attorney Holly.
That's not confusing.
This is an episode of What We Learned This Week. Is that right? Is that where we're going with it?
That's where we're going with it.
It's a tough week because we have been having some technical difficulties with our website. But I think that the theme of this podcast being in line with the brand of the Auto Accident Attorneys Group of taking care of people, we take care of you. I think we got to come up with what we've learned in terms of taking care of people. You know, one of the things, it's not necessarily new that we've learned, but it has come up with cases, and I don't think anyone's ever discussed it, is you get hit by somebody else and you call their insurance company to open the claim, and they tell you that they've denied liability based on the police report or based on the statement of their insured, something like that. So technically, you're sitting there thinking you're SOL, right? But how many times have we submitted a demand, formal demand that complies with Georgia law, and it's no different than making the claim by phone, except for the fact that it's all written and you're showing all of the demonstrative evidence on paper, and it's got to comply with Georgia's statutory code that says, you know, if you're going to make an offer of settlement, it has to be sent with tracking mail, all these rules that it complies with. And the insurance company, 9 times out of 10, on those cases where they are supposed to be at fault and they've denied it wrongfully, they will go ahead and pay out on the claim. They'll either, well, in the case that we had, they tendered the limits. But I think the point I was trying to make as I went on that tangent was the fact that you can't really rely on the adjuster's determination of liability on a phone call. They'll tell you that it's denied.
What's that quote that's like about a horse that doesn't get fed?
That's so good. I'm so happy. Dad would be super proud with all of his idioms. You know, I think the idiom you're looking for is that you can lead a horse to water, but there's more than one way to skin a cat. That's what you meant to say. No, what you meant to say was,
That's what happens when you're raised by foreign parents.
yeah, you know, there's more than one way to skin a cat. And so my father says,
Skin a kitty cat.
skin a kitty cat. A closed mouth doesn't get fed.
There we go.
That's it. Or a squeaky wheel gets the grease.
So there's no horses involved.
There's no horse.
Guess what I just learned this week?
That's great. Wonderful. Now we're taking care of people in all sorts of ways.
Yeah. Closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Closed mouth doesn't get fed.
So submit that demand.
Yeah. Like cops can say anything at a stop. They can actually lie to you. Like cops, adjusters can lie to you. There's no ramification for it unless you get it in writing. So that's why I think the demand makes such a difference, is you put everything in writing and you get a formal response and they have to commit to it.
I think this applies to everything in life. People can say whatever they want. Doesn't matter if it's a cop, an adjuster, someone at Chipotle. And I think, but when it's somebody that's seemingly in an authoritative position, you take their word for it.
Right.
When in reality, they're just a human being. They can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Until you get it in writing. So another thing we learned this week, get everything in writing.
Yeah, we did. That was a big lesson. And I'm assuming you're also talking about the website transfer.
The learning lesson there was I don't know anything about websites, about domains, about servers, about IT.
I think the bigger takeaway from that is that it is important to have the skill set to solve whatever problems come your way.
Yeah, and interestingly, it's not necessarily that you have to have in this instance, the technology skills. It's just understanding the questions that need to be asked.
Right.
To be able to facilitate those kinds of issues.
Right. A good attorney, and I'm thinking about this, you said that it's important to have the skill set of knowing what questions to ask or what things to focus on are important. it made me think of like intake calls when clients call in
Mhm.
and they get caught up on certain aspects of the fact pattern without I'll always listen, but so much of that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know, there a lot of it actually goes to like state of mind. Like this person they were either they were speeding or they weren't paying attention or I know that they were on their phone in a rear end collision. None of that stuff matters. They rear ended you. They can they could have had their eyes closed. They could have been watching you completely the whole time.
Yeah.
They rear ended you. So that the other portion, for all intents and purposes, doesn't matter. Now there are some nuances and cases where you want to really bring some heat and try and punish that driver for wrongdoing. But for the most part, those don't matter. Whereas some of the symptoms that people on intake don't focus on, those do matter. So it's about knowing what questions to ask and what to highlight. Even in a business, I was thinking about something that was written on the dry erase board when you and I were working on at the beginning of the year, identifying the key metrics.
Mm.
So whether it's problem solving, building an auto accident case, or building a business, you got to be able to identify what's important and what's not.
Yeah. That's the skill.
That's the skill set.
And it's truly a skill set because a lot of people, not they can't do it, but they probably just don't think about it like that. Being able to hone in on that skill set, you might be able to identify it on day 1 versus day 60, for example.
Yeah, exactly. By the time you stumble into it, I don't know how many times my day 60 has happened. I didn't have the skill set. I figure a lot of stuff out by doing the thing.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that most people would benefit from not getting caught up on is not letting that mental block in their head get in their way as a wall, as an excuse to not do a thing, to be like, oh, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, figure out how to do it.
Yeah. I think that stops people dead in their tracks. And because you can't figure out the how, you don't go any further than that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a minute to figure out the how. But if you stop yourself right there, it's over.
Yeah.
Then yeah, you don't know how.
That's right. Life is full of needing to figure out how.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe there's too much of a dependence on others, maybe.
Sure.
You're like, well, I don't know how to do it, but somebody else does. So I'll just get that person to do it, which I don't know. I don't think I'm presenting it correctly because there's something to be said for that.
Well, funny enough, even when you go get the person who's supposed to know how, sometimes it turns out that they don't even know how.
Yeah. We did learn a lot this week. That was the only thing that we could think of to bring to the attention of anyone that is willing to listen, and hopefully it gives some insight. We will do a better job of thinking and bringing you the thinking man's content, thinking woman's content,
Thinking people's content.
thinking people's content next week. All right. Thanks for tuning in to the Auto Accident Attorneys podcast. Follow us, like us on social. I'm at Attorney Ali. Our Instagram page is
the_AAA_group.
the AAA group with underscores in them.
Hate an underscore.
It's pretty Gen X of, I think I may have set that up. But anyways, everyone, have a good day. We'll see you next week.